Ladies and gentlemen, this evening's it's no real introduction. Mr. Philip Curtis is going to talk on memories of Monkwearmouth.
Thank you. Right, it's great to see everybody here tonight, and hope you enjoy. First of all, this is the best type of history, I think. Social history is the best. You know, when you go to school, you get the curriculum of the kings and queens and who was Henry VIII's last wife, etc. The Romans, the medievals, but this is the best history. It's the history of when some of us were still alive, and the memories of where, well, the memories of a part of our city that perhaps have been gradually forgotten. And the longer they're not spoken about and kept as oral history and written history, the more it will be forgotten about. But the area I'm going to do this evening is Monkwearmouth, but it's more specifically the Barbary Coast. Now, just quick, because I'm just wondering, put your hand up if you were born or lived in the Barbary Coast. Can I just have a look? About 20 years, okay. So by the Barbary Coast, I'm taking the border from the bridge. Imagine going down North Bridge Street to the Wheatsheaf, turning round at Roker Avenue, going all the way down to the bottom of Roker Avenue. It's everything that's east in that space. The dozens and dozens and dozens of streets. That's what I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm going to evoke some memories. If you're not a Barbary Coaster, I think you'll probably remember some of this area anyway, some of the places I'm going to show you. And more importantly, some of the people who come from there, who lived there. So we're going to start the talk a bit like, you know, when you go on one of these tours when you're on holiday and the guide has an umbrella and you all follow the umbrella. So I'm going to imagine it's a bit like that. I'm going to take you around the streets. We'll go around the border first, and then we'll go down Church Street, and we'll go into the streets. I promise you. I'll put this one up so you can get some idea of the names of the streets. You might see your own street on there. There's that many streets, I keep forgetting what's where, to be honest with you. But we'll start here at the bridge. Right? We're going to start with the pub, see if it does work. Yeah, the pub there, which is the Oak Tree, and let's get this going. We're going to start at the Oak Tree and go along North Bridge Street. The Oak Tree being there from 1850 was a coaching inn, really. I still, when I'm going across the bridge, I still think some of these places are there. So we'll carry on. But the building next to the Oak Tree was Kitty's Caff. Kitty Cunningham's Caff, for those people who don't know who Kitty was. And Kitty Cunningham was a lady who was born and bred in the Barbary Coast. And she ran not only a caff, but she also ran a newsagents and a general dealers. And for little boys who went in her shop, she probably frightened the life out of them. Because as a little boy, I went into the shop once or twice, and she frightened the life out of me. She had bright red lipstick on, if you remember Kitty, and she always had a cigarette stuck on her bottom lip. And it never sort of moved. You're waiting for something to happen. Actually, I was waiting for her to swallow it, but it never did happen. So Kitty's Caff started there. You didn't get the dates of some of these photographs. I'll try to keep them as close, tight together as I could. If there's a tram on it, it's obviously before 1954. And so we're going along Kitty's Caff there. Kitty moved that caff gradually, but next we'll come to Howick Street, which is the very first street. A bit of this still exists today, but they've changed the name to Barton Street. Dorothy Street, sorry, Dorothy. Can you see the building on the left? That is still there. It's a student accommodation place today. So we've now called Howick Street Dame Dorothy Street. But this was one of the main streets that ran from North Bridge Street right down, became Charles Street eventually, with a big bank leading it down to St. Peter's Church. So Howick Street was, like many of the streets of the Barbary Coast, tenement really. I was trying to work out this afternoon, did anybody actually own a house in the Barbary Coast, in all these streets? And I think there were one. Sorry? You lived in Howick Street. Did you own the house? All right. If I'd known, I would have brought a photograph. So Howick, there's a few more photographs coming of Howick Street. Anyway, I've got to get this right. There's people here. This is Howick Street. Now, Howick Street, tenement, like most of the streets. The closer you got to the river, the poorer the housing was, really. The further from the river, leading to Roper Avenue, the little better, the more amenities, shall we say, the houses have. Having said that, a lot of the houses in the Barbary Coast 99% of them didn't have an indoor toilet. They had a tap down the yard. They didn't have hot water at all. They didn't have a bathroom at all. Howick Street was exactly the same. It was made up of shops, and every corner of it practically had a pub. And the number of pubs when I was researching this, that was in the Barbary Coast, we were getting well over 50 pubs. So it appeared to me that the population of the Barbary Coast really must have been out every night trying to do a bloody business. I want to see some. I'll put a few in for you as we go around us. Right, this is the pub in Howick Street, the Olive Branch. As you went down it, a very, very popular. Is it number 42 Howick Street? Oh, you remember it. And a very popular pub. And we're going to have a look at some of the people here. So this is the team in 1946. They're all Barbary Coasters, and you wouldn't mess with some of them, really, would you? I'm sure they've been told to smile. The barmaid is obviously on the right. And I love it when they take photographs. If you're not in the photograph, I'll sit at the window and look out. I said, they wouldn't look at it. He said, well, two got the fat caps on. And, but they're very proud of being within the Darts and Dominoes. So those are the lads from the Olive Branch pub who must have lived in the streets around there. This is Howick Place, if you carried on going down. Howick Place and Howick Street. And this is shortly before the buildings were due to be demolished, around 1959 and 60 in this photograph. And you can see the children in the streets playing. There wasn't a lot of amenities to play there. And I wanted up so to see what they're doing actually. They're well dressed, they're good friends. Most children then played outside. You played outside. You didn't have the Game Boys and things like that. You're outside playing games in the street. And of course, all these streets had their bath in the yard, primarily. Bath night usually in this area was on a Friday night. And I can vouch for that because I'm a Barbary Coaster. We put the street where I was born later on. So Friday night, this is what you would do. The baths had a handle on either side. You carry it into the house, and every receptacle would be filled up with water, boiled. Put as much water as you dare into the bath in case it splashed over and spoiled if you had a carpet. And that was all right, but everybody used the same water. So you didn't want to be last into the bath. Really, that was the thing. And then when you were finished, you had to get there wasn't a plug to pull, obviously. You had to get all of the bath, edge it out, and swill the yard, usually the mother would swill the yard with the contents of the bath. So but there's the bath inside. This is not my home, by the way. It is a Barbary Coast. There's the bath ready. I don't quite know what the pill's for. I don't know whether they're heating the pill somehow. And well, this is interesting because in the photograph you can see there is a budgie cage. And I was just thinking about the pets that people had then. The budgie, a lot of the houses had a budgie. We had Bobby. Remember that? How many people call their budgies Bobby? There must have been hundreds of Bobbies, the budgie. And greyhounds. We had a greyhound, I'm sure, because you could take the greyhounds to the flapping tracks and none of that happening. Greyhounds and budgies seem to be and a dog, obviously. But if you had a dog, a lot of them had greyhounds. I'll tell you a few tales about them. And of course, above the fireplace, a lot of houses who had the Black Rangers had a brass bar across that you could put washing to dry. But as a rule, it was a wire that people had. They didn't have a brass bar. Right, we're going back into Church Street. We're going along. We're on the next block now. Moores is there. We can see the date roughly from the tram. We've got the Scotch Church. I still call it the Scotch Church. The Heaven Church there facing you. On your left will be the Monkwearmouth Station. And this is what it looked like before the war. Can you see the railings that were there? They were all taken down for the Second World War effort, the railings. And of course, I've got that many to show you. Moving along a little bit further, we come to a building that still exists, but the entrance of this building is down the side street, right? This building, can you remember when we unit had scientific instruments, I think, in large letters on the front of it. It's right across the road from Monkwearmouth Station. The entrance was there. This used to be the vicarage for St. Peter's, and this is one of the reasons that we had a hospital built in Monkwearmouth.
It's totally free to subscribe to our channel, and we'll let you know when there's a new video to watch. The subscribe button is below the video, next to the like, share and comment icons. The link to our Facebook site is in the top comment right next to our link to explore the Sunderland Antiquarians website.